Number 10. Roman slavery. Slavery in ancient Rome had an essential role in society and the economy. Besides manual labor, enslaved people performed various household tasks and may be employed in highly specialized professions and professions. Accountants and physicians were often enslaved. Slaves of Greek descent, in particular, may be well educated. Slaves with little skills or those committed to slavery as punishment worked in fields, mines, and mills. Under Roman law, slaves were considered property and lacked legal personhood. The majority of slaves would never be liberated. They may be subjected to corporal punishment, sexual exploitation, prostitutes were often slaves, torture, and summary execution, unlike Roman citizens. Slaves, on the other hand, gradually received more legal protection, including the ability to file complaints against their masters. Enslaved women were victims of predatory masters. Wives objected, and society showed dissatisfaction, although modestly, but the law sided with the errant husbands. An upper-class Roman family would have had dozens, if not hundreds, of slaves. A middle-class family would have had 1 to 3, and a wealthy working-class member could have had 1. Enslaved women were often employed as servants, such as personal maids to the mistress or housekeepers. Number 9. Crucifixions. The ancient Romans adored crucifixions. It was formerly the primary way of torturing and killing numerous slaves. Crucifixion did not necessarily imply nailing the guilty on a cross. The accused was sometimes stripped naked, had his head covered, and was bound to a crucifix or fork. Also, he was flogged, sometimes to death. If the prisoner was not to die through the continual flogging, the next step was to nail his hands to the crosshead. Archaeologists in Cambridgeshire, England, have uncovered what they believe to be the best preserved physical evidence of crucifixion. A 1,900-year-old skeleton with a 2-inch iron nail driven through his heel. This is an extremely significant discovery since it's just the second finding of a Roman crucifixion victim, said John Granger Cook, a professor at LaGrange College in Georgia. The deceased in Fenston would have been a 25 to 35-year-old guy standing around 5 feet 7 inches tall. His foot was nailed down to keep him from wriggling around in his final moments, and existing injuries on his legs indicate he was enslaved and shackled before his death. He was buried with the timber structure, maybe the bier he was executed on. Number 8. Destruction of Jerusalem. Empire, Vespasian's oldest son, Titus, was the Flavian dynasty's second ruler. But before he became emperor, Titus was a well-known Roman general. The reigning emperor tasked the latter with putting an end to the Jews' insurrection against Roman control. Titus's conquest and destruction of Jerusalem ended several decades of resistance that had erupted long before his time. The Romans permitted pilgrims to enter the city. Still, they refused to let those exit, strategically depleting Jerusalem's food and water supplies. Josephus, a Jew who had commanded rebel forces before deflecting to the Roman side, sought to negotiate a solution. Still, the negotiations failed because the Romans did not trust him and the rebels hated him. The Romans built a wall around the city to entirely cut off supplies and drive the Jews to hunger. After a prolonged siege, when Titus conquered the city, his army slaughtered 1,100,000 individuals. The majority of them were Jews. Approximately 100,000 more were imprisoned and enslaved, their image permanently engraved into the bas-relief of Titus's ark. Number 7. The CARACALLA baths. CARACALLA was one of the ugliest emperors in Roman history. He was nasty, capricious, deadly, and blatantly impolite. This was not wholly Caracalla's fault. He followed his followers' instructions and sincerely desired to be remembered as a soldier and conqueror in the style of Alexander the Great, rather than the philosopher king that Marcus Aurelius, Roman Empire of 161 to 180 CE, personified. While his Western military actions may have helped the stability of that region for several years, his Eastern approach was self-destructive and needless. Caracalla is best known for the baths that carry his name in Rome, as well as an ordinance issued in 212-213 that awarded full Roman citizenship to practically all free people of the empire, concluding years of legal development. Emperor Caracalla constructed the baths to secure the political favor of his people. The Caracalla baths were used as baths until the Ostrogoths took power in the 1500s during the Gothic War. Caracalla's baths are now a tourist attraction. He was stabbed by one of his guards while visiting a temple near Kari in present-day Turkey. The emperor was said to have been urinating at the side of the road at the time. His assassin supposedly became enraged after Caracalla refused to promote him to the position of the centurion. Number 6. What happened when the Roman soldiers fled or refused to follow their commander? They would face one of the most horrific punishments in military history: decimation. If the legionnaires fled the battlefield, the Roman high command would have seen no way back. All accused men, regardless of army rank or social standing, were put into groups of 10. The guys were subjected to the lottery by either taking a stone from the sack or drawing a straw. The man who pulled the shortest straw or seized the white stone was executed. The Roman legionnaires were often killed. They were not scared of the death penalty. The method in which the execution was carried out was what made the decimation a terrible punishment. Every 10th legionnaire was beaten to death by their fellow soldiers. Consider having to murder a buddy with whom you've marched for years, eaten meals, and battled side by side. Number 5. Forbidden pleasures. In many ways, the Romans were more sexually open than we were. Much of the Roman religion had a vital sexual element. The Vestal virgins remained celibate to maintain their independence from male domination, while other religious events honored prostitution. Moreover, divorce and other legal actions were simple for women as for males. In this sense, women were more sexually liberated than in many countries. Homosexuality was also unremarkable, especially among males. There was no Latin terminology to distinguish between same-sex and different sex desire. Only free-born Roman citizens were protected from sexual activity as children. Prostitution was legal and widespread. Slaves were regarded as their master's property in sexual and economic aspects. Number 4. Hate for Christians and Jews. The Roman hates Christians as much as they hate Jews. Although it's often claimed that Christians were prosecuted for their refusal to worship the emperor, general dislike for Christians likely arose from their refusal to worship the gods or take part in the sacrifice, which was expected of those living in the Roman Empire. Christians believed Jesus to be their Lord, not the emperor. They followed Jesus first and foremost, even before the empire. As a result, the Romans began to persecute Christians, which meant they started injuring, tormenting, and occasionally killing them. Diocletian, the Roman emperor, burned thousands of copies of the Bible, ordered that all Bibles be destroyed, and commanded that any residents possessing a Bible to be torched. In reality, he built a monument over what he believed to be the final remaining Bible. By 3025, an estimated 7 billion people are Christians, with up to 2 million martyred for their religion. Number 3. Fights between emperors and empresses. The emperors and empresses of Rome fought each other. Their chosen weapon was poison. In the 1st century AD, a woman named Locusta of Gaul became Rome's worst poisoner. Poisons prepared by Locusta of Gaul killed many members of Rome's imperial court in the 1st century AD. But Locusta is surrounded by mystery. We know she was born in Gaul, modern-day France, and brought her knowledge of poisons with her to the empire's capital. Locusta used lethal chemicals such as arsenic, belladonna, and death cap mushrooms. Agrippina was not the only Roman who poisoned a member of her family. Claudia Livia Julia poisoned her next in line to the throne husband, Drusus. Nero used poison to pursue his stepbrother. Caligula stuffed an entire trunk with poisons. The imperial court had such a bad reputation for the poison that many people relied on tasters or were always concerned about their meals. Number 2. The first genocide. It's assumed that the first genocide is related to Romans in 146 BC. The Romans destroyed the city of Carthage during the Third Punic War, transforming North Africa into another province of the all-powerful Roman Empire. Both empires desired control of Sicily and Corsica, the ideal commerce hubs of the Mediterranean. Carthage was destroyed as a result. They were obliged to leave Sicily, restore all kidnapped Romans, pay a large sum, and keep their quinqueremes out of Roman waterways. The Romans launched their last attack, mercilessly destroying the city and killing its inhabitants over 7 days. Only on the previous day did they take around 50,000 hostages who were sold into slavery. Scipio Aemilianus, a Roman commander, besieged Carthage for 3 years before it collapsed. The Romans burnt the city to the ground after sacking it, leaving no stone on top of another. Romans had wiped out the entire race of Carthaginians in just one battle. Number 1. The danger of being emperor. Besides the unleashed power of being an emperor of the entire Rome, the dark truth is that you would probably die young, or at least soon. There's a very high percentage of it. Researchers have noticed every reign of the rulers of the Roman Empire over 4 centuries. 43 of the total 62 emperors died from unnatural causes. That means they only had 38% chance of not being assassinated, killed in combat, or executed. It's like you have a better chance of climbing up Mount Everest than surviving as the ruler of the Roman Empire. Joseph Saleh from the Institute of Technology, Georgia, said that being a Roman emperor is playing Russian roulette with 4 bullets in the cylinder. Thanks for watching. So would you have wanted to be the Emperor of Rome 2,000 years ago? Let me know in the comments below. And be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. See you next time.